This is normally where we bring people into the studio, and usually they get about here and they just stop. And they're just looking around at everything. This vestibule is really cool because it's kind of a history lesson on Four Horsemen Studios and some of the stuff that we have here. Some of the stuff you're going to see is, many of you probably came into us through Mythic Legions, but before we had Mythic Legions, there were a number of other lines like Seventh Kingdom, Gothtropolis, Magmacore. These are all lines that predate Mythic Legions, and you see a lot of the prototypes here. At the bottom here, you see these really big Minotaurs. Those are from our Seventh Kingdom line, and what those actually are what we call two-ups. So back then, when they were sculpting these by hand, not digitally, they used to have to sculpt at twice the size that the figures would actually be presented in. They would go to China, they would get scanned, and they would get shrunk down for the finals. But that's why you see these like super oversized figures. And those all, I mean, those at this point are, 20-something-year-old prototypes that have moved a few different times and are largely still intact. One of the things that I love pointing out is actually this top row here, because not only are those our two-ups, but most of them never were released. So we did a set for the Seventh Kingdom line called kind of like the Queen's Council. It was a bunch of the female figures. There's a follow-up set that were planned for that for Gothtropolis. And this one right here, kind of the Vampire Queen, she was the main one that was going to lead that wave. And then you can see a bunch of the other ones, they used some different head sculptures. That never went forward. At that point, the Gothtropolis line, it didn't have the popularity it needed to continue. And this was actually at a point where making toys was getting more and more expensive, and it was hard for them to be able to produce these things. A few years later, they would be introduced to a radical new way of producing toys called Kickstarter. And I think you all know where that led. The Raven Bird Kickstarter, that really started their time working with that platform, which led to Mythic Legions. Speaking of the birds, you can see a lot of the birds here in the display case. And my favorite one to point out, you know which one my favorite one to point out is Big Bird. So
it's probably my favorite one too.
that was created by a specific person here at Four Horsemen Studios. Any guesses what maniac decided to make that thing? That is Chris. But what is amazing about that is a custom figure that is painted by the factory. He literally pulled some strings, he had them take that head, and he had them paint it using all of the factory paints, so it's basically as close to a production figure as you're going to get. That Big Bird Gothtropolis figure. So I love pointing out that. But that's what a lot of those are. Now, another really interesting piece, because we see a lot of stuff, like these are some old McFarlane figures. This is actually the Hunchback of Notre Dame that has Jim Preziosi's head on it. This is Corn Boy. This is Dr. Frankenstein with Eric Treadaway's head on it. So those are our illustrious founders and owners up there. One of the things I love to show people in this case is right over here. So if you notice, there's that purple knight and there's that large dwarf. Does everyone see those over there? We put some regular Mythic Legions on the side of them. Those are the original Mythic Legions 2-ups. Now, they're not twice the size of what we know as Mythic Legions because Mythic Legions weren't meant to be 7-inch figures. When Mythic Legions were first planned out, they were meant to be 4-inch Glyos compatible figures. So the resulting 2-ups were about 8 inches tall, a little bit bigger than what we have today. The story goes that when the studio displayed this at our Toy Tokyo show, people were so excited for the larger size, and these were originally not even meant to be named characters. Like Gorgo Aetherblade, who got shown at Toy Tokyo, he wasn't Gorgo Aetherblade, he was just a dude in badass black armor. People responded so well to the character styles, so well to the size, that the decision was made that, hey, we are going to upscale these figures to the 7 inches. We are going to fully flesh out the story, paint these up. But I love the fact that we have them here. And that Purple Knight that was part of the Armory experience last year is based on the Purple Knight that you see right there. That was a tie-in to the very start of the Mythic Legions line. A couple other notable things to show here. Does anyone have any of the Gothotropolis toys? So the old Gothotropolis timekeepers, super crazy little fragile guys. There's 3 timekeepers in there, 2 of which are totally unreleased colors that were planned for later in the line. So you not only get to see the 2 ups there, but you also get to see the pink one, the green one, and the purple one. Yes, we had purple love even back then. So that's really interesting. Right behind Blake over here, we have another case that this is very interesting. And after I'm done talking about this, you guys have a few minutes to take some pictures and stuff in here. This case here, not only are these prototypes, these are prototypes of lines that largely never saw the light of day. So the way that Horsemen used to do figures was they did this fantastic exclusive voting experience, right? Where people would actually vote on not only the figures and the builds and all that, but they would vote on the line that would get produced. Seventh Kingdom won the first couple fantastic exclusive votes, then Gothotropolis won. But Magma Core predated both of them. Symbiotech was another line that was meant to be kind of like these little driver figures in these larger mech suits or creatures. They never saw the light of day, but these are the prototypes. Magma Core, the only one that ever got actually released is Commander Argus, the one that we see in the middle. But all of these other guys were planned. Side note, super pissed that the Gloopy dudes never got made because they are awesome. Super gloopy guys. Would love to see that at some point in one of the lines. And then down there we have some of the Power Lords figures that were produced and some prototypes that were never produced. So this is a really cool case as well because it's a glimpse at what could have been had we not gone in the direction that we did. Any questions on anything in here? No, we good? Let's go on to the studio made the decision that we wanted to go to 7 inches. They wanted to see what that may look like. So see this weird white knight. You can come around and take a look at it after. There's this weird white knight in there. It's like really low res. It almost looks like it's carved out of like soap or something. That was a scan of the original Glio-sized knight that they did. They wanted to see what it would look like at the larger scale, so they actually scanned it. Guys, okay? They actually scanned the knight to see how it would look, and they had it 3D printed up. This was long before we were doing 3D printing for all of the prototypes and everything that we're doing today. But that is a representation of the very first, essentially, 7-inch Mythic Legions figure. And the fact that we still have it here and available, I think is super, super cool. Now, a lot of you may know that in addition to toys, we do a lot of other stuff here. We work for other toy companies. You can see there's a number of 2-ups of Masters of the Universe 2000X figures, okay? 2000X is getting an unexpected resurgence right now with Mondo and Mattel putting them out, but that all started in the head of Eric Treadaway. He's the one that did a lot of those designs, and you can see a lot of the 2000X 2-up maquettes, or they're not maquettes, they're 2-ups that eventually became figures over here as well. So we've done work for other companies over the years. We've done work for like other non-toy companies also. So right over here, if you can see, there's a little kind of design of a piano. Upstairs from us is a prop shop called BB Props, and they do props for Hollywood films, for Broadway productions, for television, all kinds of stuff. And there was a Broadway production that was done a few years ago called The Piano Lesson, okay? They wanted to have this custom-made piano as part of the actual exhibit. And it was very cool. There's an article on our website about this, but we crafted this piano for the piano lesson, and it was very successful run on Broadway. at the end of that actual experience, at the end of their Broadway run, that actual prop that we created, Bill actually had a ton to do with creating that. That ended up in the Smithsonian. So some of Four Horsemen Studios work, some of Bill Mancuso. If you don't know Bill, longtime member of Four Horsemen Studios. Work is actually in the Smithsonian, which is super, super cool. So, I mean, people know us as a toy company, but it's so interesting to talk about those other facets that we have of the line here. And there's just a lot of cool stuff in these cases. If you notice, there's these weird kind of peach-colored prototypes. Those are what we call fine cuts. So before we get the test shots, everyone's familiar with test shots because we sell test shots and it's something that we talk about all the time. But before they can cut the steel molds, which are very expensive to cut those molds, we want to make sure that everything looks correct. So they make molds out of silicone because it's much, much cheaper to make silicone molds, and they send us these very, very fragile test fine cuts for us to take a look at. Because if something's not right, it's way easier to fix it at that stage before we cut steel. So those are some of the first from the factory things that we get to see, so we can dial in everything that has to be potentially fixed before they cut the steel and they send us, you know, the test shots that we will be looking at. After test shots, once that's all worked out, Chris is our production manager here.
Yarr! Chris who?
I'm gonna see if I can get a straight answer out of him.
Looks like a hibachi chef.
It's unlikely. What is the material that the fine cuts are made in? What is that material?
Yes, resin.
It's honestly
different sometimes.
okay.
Generally it's resin, but fine cuts could be printed now.
Okay.
Before it would be, we set over a 12-inch, they shrink it down, they make silicone molds of that, resin copies, and then that's like the fine cut. So depends.
Okay. So there you go.
Yarr!
Some resin there. So that's an example of the prototype stage. On the wall back here, there's a whole bunch of prototypes there. Those are, I call them prototypes, those are factory samples that they've actually sent us. So a lot of them are like pre-production samples. A lot of times you can tell they're pre-production samples because the discs are the wrong colors. So the plastic that they use for the discs, it doesn't like hold paint very well. That's why a lot of times when people are like, oh, it chipped, it's because the material just doesn't hold the paint.
Doesn't hold paint at all.
At all. There we go. So that's why they cast the discs, they use a colored plastic that's very, very similar to what the paint's going to be. When they send us the paint samples for us to approve, they're not as concerned with making sure the discs are the right colors. They'll use whatever ones they have. So sometimes they actually do have the right color. But a lot of times if you notice a figure that's got like black discs, that's why, because it's a pre-production sample for us to make sure that everything looks good. And if you're ever wondering, why does it take so darn long to go from pre-order to delivery? It's because of this complicated process. There are so many steps along the way to make sure that the final figures we're going to deliver are of the quality that we want them to be for Four Horsemen Studios. So you'll have an opportunity to go take a look at all of those. We've got the Rising Suns wave over there. We've got the Ox Crew Wave 2 wave over there. And then we've also got like the Legions Con exclusive figures that we put up on display as well. Some very cool stuff to take a look at there. One thing that always gets a ton of attention is the wall of Legions that we have back here. So that was something that, once again, Bill kind of spearheaded and worked on that to put them all up. And it's crazy to think how outdated it is now, or how incomplete it is now. As I mentioned earlier, we're moving into a new building, and one of the things I'm excited for is just being able to finish or continue this display so we can really see a point. I mean, that doesn't even have the full Aerothere wave on there. It's seriously, at this point, it's crazy how a limited amount of our now the run we have is represented there. So that's going to be exciting as well. But people always love to take photos in front of that, and once again, you're welcome to do so. Obviously behind Kirby here, we've got Bayathair. So Bayathair's not coming to Legions Con with us this year. We just have too many other things that are on display, and he's kind of a diva. You know, trying to get him to go and having to put him together, it's a lot of work. And we've got a lot of other work that we have to do this year. But we wanted to put them out for the interns so they could see all of these figures on display. Fun fact, this is only the second time that all of this has actually been on display. Because at Legions Con last year, the figures were not on display, right? I brought the figures minus Bayathair's Fury to Mesquite Con, but Bayathair didn't come. We had it all out at Toylanta, but other than Toylanta last year, which was right the tail end of the campaign, this is the only the second time that this has been fully on display for everyone to see. Yeah.
Is the dagger in the case from that full-size scapular?
Yeah, that's Scapular's dagger, right?
Yeah. Ran out of places to put things on Scapular, so. Yeah.
And there's a lot of, again, other cool stuff here. So, I mean, that big foam head that we see over here of Kurzog, that was kind of like a test of the full-size Kurzog. I mean, Kurzog started, they did a bust of Kurzog, and it was so cool, people loved it, that the question was, can we do it full-size? So that's actually cut foam from upstairs. They have a big machine that cuts that. We've got the diorama that these guys created for the Ox Crew Book 2 wave. A lot of people are like, are you going to release that? We made it specifically for the photos, but it was also kind of designed in such a way that if there's ever a time where it makes sense to release it, we're at least going to start on what we would need to do with that.
Yeah, go for Jordan.
Go for Ricky.
The dragon with the purple helmet, did you get that from Amber? Is that Granomir?
That's Granomir, yeah. Yeah, that's an old Masters Classics figure that they did toward the end of the run. Are there any other questions on anything that we've seen so far that you guys want to ask about?
This base is completely new. Never seen at Toylanta.
Yeah. So you're getting a sneak peek of what our display cases are going to look like at Legions Con this week. Nice. We did a lot of these really striking new graphics. So yeah, that's the first time that anyone has really seen that, but you will see similar graphics on all the display cases this weekend.
Must have like a new graphics kind of guy.
We do.
Yeah.
We do. We have Len helping us out with that.
Let's go ahead and drop some purple hearts in the comments for the Director of Sales and Marketing for Four Horsemen Studios, Jeremy Girard. And make sure you're following Four Horsemen Toy Design on all of the major social media platforms for your chance to enter the 2026 Intern for a Day Lottery. It is an opportunity of a lifetime. Purple Gang Gang.